In this movie, we're going to take our graphics so far and we're going to switch out the gradients and the fills and the drop shadow and more in order to create this variation on the artwork. And the reason I'm doing this is so I can show you how to change out the various attributes associated with the live paint object, because even though the darn things are powerful, they're precarious as well. And then in the next movie, I just want you to have a sense for what's coming here. We'll go ahead and add shadows that are being cast by the ring and the knot onto each other and even themselves. So, something to look forward to. Anyway, I'll go ahead and switch to the document at hand. And if you're working along with me, make sure nothing is selected. If necessary, press Control-Shift-A or Command-Shift-A on the Mac. And then what you want to do is go up to the window menu and choose Gradient. And if necessary, expand the panel by clicking on that little double arrow icon to the left of the word Gradient. And I want you to select the orange grad up here in the swatches panel, just so that we have a starting point. And now double click on the first color stop and go ahead and dial in the following values. Cyan of 0 is fine. We want magenta to be set to 5%, and then yellow should be set to 25%. The K value should be 0%. Next, go ahead and double click on the next stop in, the middle stop there. The C value should still be 0. We want the M value to be 10 and the Y value to be 75. And the K value to be 10% as well. All right, now take this guy, the selected middle color stop, and change its location value to 25%. And now I want you to Alt-Drag or Option-Drag the first color stop in order to make a duplicate of it, and go ahead and change its location value to 50%, and then Alt-Drag or Option-Drag that second color stop over in order to make a copy of it as well, and change its location value to 75%. Then double-click on the final color stop to once again bring up the color panel. And if you're not seeing the CMYK values, by the way, you want to switch from swatches to color over here on the left-hand side of this panel. All right, we want the C value to once again be 0. The M value should be 25, the Y value should be 100, and the K value should be 30. And we end up with this gradient right here. All right, one more modification we want to make. You want to change the type from linear to radial. All right, now let's go ahead and save this gradient out as a swatch by clicking on the little page icon at the bottom of the swatches panel. And I'll call this guy Golden Rad because, after all, it's a radial gradient, and then click OK. Now, we want to create a couple of additional solid fill swatches as well. So press the comma key just to switch back to a solid color. And we don't really care what it is. Now return back to the swatches panel. Click on the little page icon at the bottom of the panel and dial in the following values. We want to create a kind of dark purple for the drop shadow. So I'm going to change the cyan value to 50. I'm going to dial in a magenta value of 70, and then I'm going to change the other two values to 50% as well. So we've got 50, 70, 50, 50. Click OK. And then click on the little page icon again to create yet another swatch. And this time, I'll dial in a cyan value of 0, a magenta value of 25, a yellow value of 75, and a black value of 50%. And then, once you've done so, then click OK to create the kind of sienna color there. All right, now we want to go ahead and assign these colors to our existing object. So go ahead and click on the live paint object in order to select it. If you like, you can press Control-H or Command-H on a Mac in order to hide those selection edges. Now, the next step, really seriously, is to cross your fingers and then go up to the first swatch in the control panel, click on it, and switch over to Golden Rad. And with any luck, everything will work out beautifully just like this. If not, if you end up getting a lot of little gradients in the intersecting areas, then you're going to have to reset the gradients using the gradient tool. But in my case, everything worked out great. Now then, we want to change the stroke to that sienna color we just created. So click on the second swatch in and select that color, C0, M25, Y75, K50. And nothing happens. And it doesn't matter how many times you go and select this swatch, you're not going to see any change. And this goes even if you decide to select the strokes using the Live Paint selection tool. So you're not going to see things update. It's some sort of bug inside Illustrator, but here's how you solve the problem. So you select the color first, and then you change the line weight to anything. For example, I'll enter a line weight value of 2. And notice that not only changes the line weight, but it updates the color as well. But the actual line weight value I'm looking for is 1 point. So I'll go ahead and dial that in, and we get this effect here. The object is still selected. I'm going to go ahead and collapse my gradient panel here and drag up a little bit on the bottoms of both the swatches and gradient panels so I have some more room here in the layers panel. And I'm going to switch over to the appearance panel next and click on that drop shadow effect that we created in the previous movie. And I'm going to dial in some new values. First thing I'm going to do is change the X offset value to 7, and then I'll change the Y offset value to 10 points. I'm going to leave the blur set to 0. And then I'm going to click on a little color swatch here. Click on the color swatches button on the right side of the color picker dialog box. And then go ahead and scroll up the list and you'll find that swatch that you created a moment ago, C50, M70, Y50, K50. Go ahead and click on it to select that sort of dark purple color. Then click OK. And now turn on the preview checkbox to see what kind of difference it makes, and you'll witness that shadow grow in the background. And it becomes a wee bit more colorful as well. So it's not just a flat, black, muddy shadow. All right, now click OK in order to accept that effect. And there's one more effect I want you to apply. Right now, I feel like the gold, even though it has a lot of variation associated with it, thanks to that 5-color radial gradient, it still lacks, dare I say, volumetric depth. So in order to give it a little bit of that, go up to the Effect menu and choose Stylize, and then choose Inner Glow. Now, by default, I believe these values are set to something along these lines. I believe that opacity is 75%, blur is 5, and the edge radio button is selected. In which case, if you turn on a preview checkbox, you'll end up seeing this effect here, which is kind of nice. We've got some slightly beveled edges, but the beveling is uneven because it doesn't occur inside these regions where one portion of the Celtic knot either overlaps the ring in this case or part of itself. So I went ahead and adjusted these values a bit. First of all, I selected center, which makes the glow effect come out from the center, as you can see here. Now, normally when you're working with edge, if you expand the blur value, then you're going to increase the size of that glow effect, like so. However, I'll go ahead and reduce that value again. When you switch to center, then low values give you very big effects like this, because basically you're saying start from the center and glow outward, and only don't glow the blur area of 5 points. So if you want to contract that glow effect, you need to raise the value. So I'm going to take it up to 25 points, like so. And then I'm also going to take the opacity value down to 50%. And we get just a hint of highlights throughout this gold ring that adds some additional highlight values to our existing gradient. All right, now click OK in order to accept that effect. That's how you go about switching out a gradient fill, as well as the color and line weight of a stroke, and finally, adjust dynamic effects associated with the live paint object here inside Illustrator. In the next movie, I'll show you how to very deliberately add these inset shadows within the confines of the live paint object.